You're quite welcome to stay on and see our show table if you like, but if you don't, we understand you might need to leave, but thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. I'll stay and watch your show table. I'd probably see things I'm not so familiar with.
Okay.
All right.
All right, I guess it's my turn. So let's start with the show table for November the 7th, 2021. Okay. Cattleya Alliance. Cattleya domingiana, grown by Michael Wang. It's the first bloom. He says it has no fragrance. Now, this is a plant that he rescued 3 years ago, and he found out that one of the tricks of growing this thing is to let it dry out. I love this particular Cattleya, but we've not grown it very successfully. I guess it's in the wrong spot and gets too much water or whatever. But I remember seeing one of Alan Koch's plants that he got a CCM on, and he grows in California, and it was a huge plant with a lot of flowers on it. It was absolutely gorgeous. I love the combination of the brown and the pink. Another one of
it likes warm weather.
There you go. And I just saw John said you can't grow it in Canada; it's too cold. So I guess now I know I won't try again. Okay, another one of Michael's plants. It's Encyclia Diota, Atro Rubens. Now this is another one that likes a fair bit of heat and a lot of light. So it's very happy in the summertime, but I hope it came in quite a while ago because the nights have been quite cool. A very nice thing. And on these encyclias, I love the little pseudobulbs that look like sort of shiny green eggs. Lilia anceps Irwin's AMAOS is one of David Bryan's plant. This is a plant that's been around for quite a while. It was awarded in 1976, so it was probably around a long time before that. And it's, as you know, Lily anceps is one of the cattleyas that have big, long inflorescences with a cluster of flowers at the end. Beautiful color, usually fall blooming. A little late in the season, I think, but still it's gorgeous. Now, this is an interesting cross. If you think back on the show tables for the last, I would say, at least 4 or 5 months, we've had at least one Cattleya CG Roebling Beachview on the show table. And here's another one. This one belongs to Sinya Tan. This is gorgeous. We also have one in the greenhouse, but ours actually bloomed 4 months ago, and this is the second blooming on this year for it. So this is, even though this is a big plant, it's really worth growing, and it's also fragrant. And I must commend Sinya on photographing this well, because when I try to photograph ours, I keep getting the lip as being much more pink than here. And it is a beautiful blue lip, one that should be in every collection. One of Joe DiCiomo's crosses or plants, it's Cattleya Chung Yu Swan Ruby Lip, an AMAOS, beautiful round flower with a contrasting red lip. Nicely grown, probably could have some fragrance. This looks like a young plant, first blooming, but a gorgeous color and shape. Another one of Joe's plants, now this is one of his crosses, is Hawaiian Jewel by Circle of Life. And whenever you see Circle of Life as a parent, it always bodes well for the progeny. And he said that Joe didn't make the cross, but he got to name it. I guess he sweet talked Roy into letting him do it. I love this Cattleya Smile Again Hawaii, pink favorite by Jeweler's Art. Jeweler's Art is one that you used to see a lot more in crosses, but you don't see it quite as often. But this is a beautiful flower, nice contrast with the art shades and the sepals and petals and the bright yellow lip with the red on the tip. Notice how nicely this is staked. Oftentimes, especially when we grow in the house, the growths actually tend to sort of flop around. But Sylvie has actually made sure that they are all nicely upright, that they're actually staked at the right time. So when the flowers come out, they face us and we can see them instead of being flopped over or looking at the sky. Nicely done, Sylvie. One of John Vermeer's plants, orchid glade by Circle of Life, Catleanthe, beautiful shape, lovely soft color. Looks like this is one of those that have been taken a while to bloom. But we all know that orchids teach us patience and perseverance, and he's hoping for more flowers next time. Another one of John's plants, this Catleanthe Terry spots, not named after me. There was some other Terry, but it's Catherine Clarkson with Evelyn Paquette. In this cross, all of them are beautifully spotted. This is a particularly full flower, nice head of flowers. As John says, that, you know, when they really do well, it'll go from 3 to 6 flowers on a head, and that really is something. And I bet it's really, really fragrant. It's a beautiful thing. This I thought was very interesting. Colette's Catleanthe white bridal. Now, what makes this Catleanthe is that the candy tuft, I think, as a grandparent, has Cattleya or has Goranthe aurantiaca in the background. So that's orange, and there's Ludmanianas and things like that are pink. But look how dominant that white Walkeriana is. It's not quite straight Walkeriana, but it managed to get rid of all the color, so you have a nice pure white Cattleya. And this would be a miniature. So Jane, we've got a white Cattleya here that would fit your description, I think. The Procatsuola Walnut Valley lime stars. This is nicely interested in, we see a lot of the little stars, the Brassivola hybrids with the very large lip, and we know that the nodosa usually has spots in the throat. This one does not, and it also has, the lip is not smooth like you usually see in the Brassivola crosses, because this has Marii in it. Used to be Epidendron Marii, but obviously it's not or is it Cattleya? Anyways, it has Marii in it, and that gives you the lip. And it's interesting that both parents, all the species that are involved here, are all white, or usually white, except for little spots from the Brassivola. And what happens here, we have a little bit of pink around the edges. So maybe the spots got spread out or whatever, but it's a very nice cross, probably very compact, fragrant, one that's nice to have around. Now, this is a Prostechia green hornet. Looks very much like a straight Prostechia cochleata. They're actually a group of Prostechias that are considered different species, but I'll be darned if I can tell them apart. They're so close in looks, and even when you cross them, you still get this very same look of these. They call them the cockleshell orchids, but I kind of think they look more like dancing squids. And this is a great one for beginners because they're a little bit fragrant. They are sequentially blooming, so they bloom over a long period of time. They're very forgiving of intermediate conditions, grow well in the house, and obviously a very, interesting thing to grow and to have. Another one of Joe's plants, 7 flowers, and I guess he means that there's only one inflorescence on this, Rhynchocatleanthe Duchomo Caesar, the clonal name Orange. So this is one that he, of his crosses, maybe the 5 other inflorescences will be out for the December, and then we'll get to see the whole thing. Wrinkleanthe dichomo iris. Colette has grown up one of Joe's seedlings and produced this lovely bright yellow flower with a very dark lip. And it's always when you have a contrast, there's something very beautiful about things that are concolor. But what's even more striking is to have a nice contrast. And she actually mentions the shimmering petals. So there's a crystalline sort of texture to the petals, and that's always very nice. This I thought was very interesting. It was a little reminiscent of some of the Pelorics that we saw in Claude's presentation. You can see here that this is a Peloric, so you can see the lip down here, and you have the two petals are almost identical to the lip, so it's really a true Peloric. And then it's almost as if somebody took two flowers and put them together, because look at the sepals. They're nice and flat and they're very broad, but they're completely different color from the petals and the lip. Very interesting combination. Now, one of Joe's plants, he says it's the first blooming. Now, this is a clone that's been around for a while. I can't get over the name. I've seen the name before, Golf Glen Hairpig. And it's like, you know, like who would name a plant hairpig? But I love I guess this is why the question about the Digbyana, because you've got this lovely fringed lip, and I'm sure that this is he says it's very fragrant. Since this is the first blooming, maybe freshly imported or whatever, I have actually seen this flower much flatter. So on another blooming, Joe, this is going to be absolutely stunning. But I still can't get over that hairpig clonal name. Surely that's kind of mean to the flower. This is our first for the Cattleyas, Wrinkle Cattleya Juan. This is a Memoria Helen Brown. Actually, Memoria Helen Brown was very famous when we first started orchids, and it was a green flower that I guess the Stewarts made, but it was very, very expensive, because to have a clear green was very unusual. But it's usually often bred with the yellows, but this is a gorgeous flower, and you notice that it's quite a large flower, brilliant color, and of course it doesn't hurt when you have a great photographer too. This is interesting, Wrinkle Cattleya Gyrec Summer, Happiness, 24 karat, which is it's a huge yellow Cattleya, and with War Chant, which is a sort of a orange with a red lip. Carolyn Bishop grew this, and she mentions the little bird coming from the center of the flower, and that's what you see here is the column and the anther cap that are pure white, and it sort of just sets off the flower. Nicely done. Another one of Sinya's Cattleyas, King of Taiwan, Wilson's Choice, Bryce Canyon with purple ruby. This is very reminiscent of Bryce Canyon, and in most crosses with Bryce Canyon, you get this lovely lavender flower, and the two yellow eyes, and fragrance, and really beautiful stance. Lovely upright ventral, which sometimes gets a little floppy. Wrinklealia Lamb's Heaven, Samantha Duncan, Orange Tart, by Cattleya Chief Gem. Lovely color, nice contrast in the lip. The only thing that I would say with this one is that maybe the lip could be a little bit fuller, but this is a beautiful thing. It has two flowers. Another one is hiding in behind, but a lovely compact plant. Another spotted cross, that Sunkissed Suncoast Sunspots with Catherine Clarkson. See, Catherine Clarkson figures in a lot of these spotted crosses that Fred Clark makes, and they are very dependable. They're fragrant. They produce a head of flowers, and they're very, very striking and very thick flowers that last a long time. Now we go into the Vandal Alliance, and we start with some Angraecums. This arranges biloba, and this Sinya says it's the first time the plant has 4 spikes. She says Sinya, as we know, experiments with her plants, and if they don't do really well in one medium, she changes the medium, and she's changed to hydrothon and Spanish moss. So hydrothon, because it's those pellets, probably would be a more open medium, but it holds a lot of moisture in the hydrothon. So maybe this is something that this particular species really likes, because obviously it's rewarded her with a bunch of flowers. And Angraecum langicaucar, and this is another maybe something to note about Angraecums, because Sandra says that when she got this plant, it was in a pot, but she actually does grow in a tent with very good humidity. And when she unpotted the plant, she found it did better bare root, because I guess the roots. We'd have to remember that all these plants are epiphytes. They want lots of humidity, but they also want a lot of air around their roots too. Beautifully done with a really, really long nettary. Now we go to the Phalaenopsis Hydroglyphica. I think this is really neat. Richard grew this, and this is one of those phales that just has 1 or 2 flowers on a stem, but keep those stems going, and eventually you have a big bunch of flowers. I love the patterning. It really does look like hieroglyphics. Whoops, we went too fast there. This is Phalaenopsis violacea, Forma cerulean, Taiwan blue. Payne Zhang grew this in an east window with supplementary LED light, and of course she likes this. The shape is most of these are very nicely shaped. The color is gorgeous, and of course it has fragrance. It has everything going for it. And again, this color is very difficult to photograph, so getting a nice blue tone is important. And a lot of people are looking for this, and everybody wants to grow the blue. So well done, Penn. Joe DeChomo grew this little Vanda. Most of his plants have been cattleyas that we've seen so far, but this is a little Vanda. This is one of the miniature Vandas, the Chrysanthemia Anna, and it's one that they're starting to use with the larger Vandas to bring down the size and bring up the number of flowers, because the miniature Vandas seem to have more flowers per stem than the great big ones. Now this is interesting. We saw the Hieroglyphica before, and when you cross it with Flores Gold, and Flores Gold is basically an Ambonensis cross. So what we got was something that's a little fuller than the Hieroglyphica that we had before. But the patterning is Hieroglyphica. So the Ambonensis does have bars and stripes, but it also has a yellow background, which didn't come through. So color dominance in color really does vary. But as Elena says, it's very beautiful and it's fragrant. And again, it will produce lots of spikes with flowers on each one, and really produce a show. Now, for Phalaenopsis gaudy, this will do it. It's called Crystal Surprise. This is one that David Bryan got awarded. It's called CAD's Solar Flare, AMAOS. And again, it produces these thick flowers that last a very, very long time. And you can see that he has an old spike and he has a new spike, and it's producing flowers on the branches. And then he has a new spike with 5 flowers. So he doesn't have the huge cascades of some of the pinks and whites, but these yellows are just absolutely gorgeous. And the contrast in colors is just wonderful. And you notice that if you look, each flower is different. and that's acceptable. This is what we call a harlequin Phalaenopsis. This I thought was very interesting. Peng grew this one. It's Hiroshima tetris, equestris with tetrapsis, variety livida. Now, there's different varieties of tetrapsis, but this one is one that's I think is pink. And what it's done is it's sort of broken up the color of the equestris. So it's got the beautiful solid lip still, but the flower itself, and of course it's fragrant, and that's from the tetrapsis. It's quite different, and again it has multiple spikes, and you can see that it blooms over a long period of time, and the spikes stay on. Phalaenopsis venus. This is a very, very old cross, and this is a miniature. Lindenii by equestris. Now, Colette says that these leaves are nicely mottled, and that comes from the Lindenii. The equestris is clear green. But look at the number of flowers. The equestris is both equestris and Lindenii are sequential flowers, but as particularly equestris, and you can see that how many times they're flowered. Every single node that you see here means that there were flowers, and there's a second spike here. So you have a little plant that's probably no more than 5 or 6 inches across, but you have flowers for months and months at a time. Beautiful little flowers. Phalaenopsis, then long red sun. From that name, see, sometimes crosses sort of surprise you. A long red sun, I would expect something red, and yet they used an indigo parent and a tetrapsis. So we got something that is more pink and white. Very nice. Again, one of these plants that the ones that we see flowering now are the ones that are sort of summer bloomers, summer to fall bloomers, and they're blooming on the old stems. And of course, the fragrance is the thing that makes these so desirable. Love this one. Phalaenopsis Tai Shin Fly Eagle, 160. This is a non-imaginative clone name, but if this is number 160, can you imagine what number 1 and 2 look like? This is beautiful, and this is the Dragon Tree Eagle line of breeding. This is so that you have the very hard substance. The Dragon Tree is actually a rounder flower, but the tetrapsis, this is probably the Chrysansonii variety, and so you have the color sort of in patches all on the different parts of the flower, and that makes it very interesting. And of course, you notice the sort of the crystalline shine of the texture. Really, really beautiful thing. I envy Yvonne this one because we just lost ours. This is the Vascostylus lucneri, bright purple. This is a clone that came from Taiwan, and it is actually very, very blue. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's a tiny, well, a miniature plant, not really tiny, but it is very interesting to grow. Beautiful color, and it will bloom more than once a year. This is another unusual cross, Vandalopsis, Captain George Lautraris, and this is Phalaenopsis Hydroglyphica with Vanda Yu Chang Long. The Hydroglyphica is a pink flower. The Vanda is actually a large, deep yellow with lots of red spots. So now what you have here is a fairly miniature plant with very interesting flowers. And if I'm not mistaken, I think this is fragrant. And again, you can see that Sandra is really growing these bare root vandaceous type plants very well, because she really does have the humidity to give them. You have roots like that, you're going to have lots of flowers, and as she said, there's 2 more spikes coming. Beautiful thing. And the last of our vandaceous plants is the Jaiho's orange. It's an Irene Dopkin cross with Zumas pixie. Zumas pixie, of course, is the pink and white multifloral Phalaenopsis, and the Irene Dopkin is the vandaceous at the Ascocentrum cross. These can be difficult to grow because these can be difficult to grow because of their genetics is so mixed up. But when you get a plant that grows and you know and you listen to your plant and you figure out how to grow it, you get beautiful, beautiful displays just like you see here. Okay, now we go to our slippers. This is Paphiopedilum deonense, yellow octopus. The synonym is Gatricianum brai doenense. This was actually at judging yesterday, and the reason it got its name, it looks like, is because its leaves sort of reach out in all directions like an octopus. It was actually at judging. I congratulate Leslie on this photograph because in a lot of times plants, flowers lose in a picture because the color doesn't come through, but he's really captured the color because it looks even more beautiful in this picture than it did at judging yesterday. You may have heard before, Paphiopedilum ferrianum is one of my favorite slippers. I love the elegance. I don't need to have a flower that's flat and round and full. I like the elegance of this, and I like what it does to crosses, to its progeny. We find it a bit challenging to grow. Some of the newer clones are easier because, of course, they've been selected to grow in greenhouses. It likes to be a little bit cooler, so you have to be cognizant of that. But I love this picture. It looks like two friends that have had a spat and now are not speaking. They're back to back. Nicely done, Sylvie. Inga and Peter sent in this Spicerianum, another very reliable time of year. I love the dorsal. It flips back. This is what it's supposed to do. And when you look from the top, and if you have a specimen plant with a number of these, you have these beautiful. They almost look like cyclamen. They're just absolutely gorgeous, and they always bloom in sort of November. Another Spicerianum grown by B. Patterson, and this has a bit of a kink in the dorsal, but this is probably something that's happened on this one flower, and looks like the other one is much flatter. Things happen with flowers. Very nice. I like the little face that happens in the center of this flower, and I thought this was kind of interesting. Bee actually put a picture of the flower on her pot, so the plant would know exactly what to do with itself when it started flowering. Fragmapedium Bessie, another very reliable, sometimes challenging plant because this is a species, and of course the species always like to have their conditions, are more fussy about their conditions. But obviously Sylvie has found the right conditions, because this is the 6th flower, and it actually looks like there's another one coming. And if you look at carefully, these petals and sepals and dorsal are actually velvet. And when this flower falls off, it almost breaks your heart, because you pick it up and it's like picking up a piece of red velvet. It's still perfectly good, but it's so soft. It's such a lovely thing. And if you look carefully, these lines that you see here are actually translucent on the pouch, so that the light shines through. It's an interesting flower that needs to be looked at more carefully. And of course, a Fragmapedium Humboldtii, Fortuna. Sometimes it's called Wersowitzii. It's the caudatum form that is more highly colored. We can go into separating these, because what happens, the taxonomists put them together, take them, separate them out. But whatever it is, it's It's a beautiful thing to grow and a nice specimen plant. The interesting thing here is that to remember is that the caudatums, the long-petaled frags, are not as wet growing as some of the others. Beautiful, the Maudii type, which is very easy to grow, and Sylvie probably grows it along with her Phalaenopsis. It has lovely green mottled leaves, and it's nice how the leaf has just come up with the flower here. Beautiful. This pouch is just stupendous. Look at how solid it looks. It looks like it's sort of some sort of a gem almost, but it's solid burgundy. Beautiful, beautiful color. Fragmapedium colorum, longifolium with sedani, and Kathy did a lot of research on this particular one because Sylvia has actually also had a name of Frag Answorthii on it, and Answorthii is another name for it. It's sometimes what happens is that especially with the frags, plants get moved, like longifolium tends to be a group, and there's different forms of it. And over time, what happens is that the taxonomists separate things out, and then you have all these different species. Then somebody makes a cross, and they name the cross. Then when another taxonomist puts some of these species back into the same thing, then you end up with two names. So that's why sometimes you get two names. Either of them will work. Probably colorum is the more accepted one at today. Fragmapedium giganteum, grown by Sinia. This is the sixth flower, and the petals on the sixth flower are 20 inches long. That's really pretty long. The tallest spike has been blooming for 2 months. Now, usually these giganteum, the caudatum group of frags all bloom at the same time. So maybe these have opened, the different stems have opened at different times, but they do bloom for a period of time, and again are absolutely gorgeous. Oncidiums, the Psychopsis Papillio. Peng Zhang grew this in the window, and she says it looks like a big butterfly. Yeah, I completely agree. But it's a mutated butterfly because it has 3 antennae. But I agree with you. It looks just like a butterfly. And remember, this is one of those ones that you never cut the spike off because it just keeps blooming for years and years and years. And sometimes even if you break off the tip, it'll branch and still bloom. These can be tricky to grow when you find the right spot for it. Keep it there, and you'll have flowers on and off throughout the year. Rhoda Chan grew this Rhododendron decora. This is a well-grown plant because usually these can be difficult. She says she likes the Mickey Mouse ears. I'm glad to see that some people are sort of taking a second look at their flowers and seeing what they resemble. So it's one that she's very proud of, and rightly so, because these Rhododendron can be tricky to grow. Bretonia Dark Star. Bretonia Almec by Miltonia L. Warren. It used to be called a Miltasia, but now you've got the Brassia, and you have Miltonias and Miltoniopsis were separated, but so they've changed the name. But this is a lovely color, a really reliable bloomer, very forgiving of a lot of things. And you can see here, and if you could just give this guy a little bit more humidity, the crinkling in the leaves, especially the accordion in like the horizontal accordion happening, is probably from lack of humidity. Perhaps some sort of a humidity tray or something that would give it a little bit extra humidity would give you even more flowers. But this is a reliable bloomer, fragrant, and should be in every collection. Another Bretonia, this is Shalobe, grown by Kathy and done. Um, she says the leaves get black spots if it's wet at night. And this is the third spike this year, she says. The thing about these Bretonias, these have been bred for sort of growing in the house, rewarding. You want lots of flowers, and because the growths mature at different times, they keep coming, that you can have flowers several times a year. As Kathy says, she grows under lights and outside, and this is the third spike this year. Very rewarding plant. Certicidium midnight. This is the Edwardii used to be an Oncidium, so it used to be an Oncidium, but now it's a Odontonia, because it was an Odontogloss. It was not a Certicilum, but it was an Odontoglossum, and then now it's a Certicilum, so now it's a Certicidium, but it's probably quite fragrant. A big long spike. You have to have room for this to grow, but the contrast of the almost black, red black color with the white is really very attractive. And it has more spikes coming. Obviously, this is a very happy plant. Look at the roots. Whenever you see healthy roots, you know it's a happy plant. Elena grows this Miltonia Sunset. Now, this is Goodale Moir with Rignalii. And she says it's the only Miltonia she likes. Now, you have to differentiate. This is a Miltonia. A lot of us think the Miltoniopsis that came from Colombia used to also be called Miltonia. These were the same thing. Well, of course they're not. They grow differently. They look different. Their genetics are quite different. So I assume that she's not saying she doesn't like the Miltoniopsis. It's her favorite of the Miltonias. Now, everybody's aware of the chocolate orchids. The Sherry Baby Sweet Fragrance, everybody has grown. People have had issues with those things. So they're big plants. They produce lots of flowers, but sometimes they get too big for people. I know some who have given them away because they just were too big for their setup. Now that has been crossed with Ruffles. We have Heaven Sent, which is almost the same kind of fragrance under certain conditions, but the flowers are more delicate looking, and the spikes aren't quite as long, but they are very rewarding. Joyce grew this Lois Posey. It used to be a Cochleota, but now it's another Oncidium, and this is a cooler growing one, so it does very well in her cool basement where she grows all of her wonderful pleurothalids. Another Psychopsis. This is Mariposa, which is Papillio by Kahili. Now this is a true pyloric, and I like pylorics, but I'm still out to lunch on this one. But these are huge flowers. Elena says it's one of her oldest plants. Obviously, what attracted her was those gaudy colors. You can't pass by those. But you can see it's a very happy-looking plant. It has at least 1, 2, 3, 4 spikes. So probably throughout the year, she has flowers on it at least every couple of months. And nicely grown. This I thought was another Elena's plants, and she says that it's a very photogenic orchid. It's a Zelemnia midas, which is a Tolumnia, what we used to call a Equiton Oncidium, with Zelencoa onustum, which also used to be it has the same sort of growing habit with the fan shape. But I thought that this photograph was particularly good because this plant is not big. It's probably, maybe 4 or 5 inches tall. But because she has taken the photograph with the flowers in front of the plant, it actually looks like she's got these gigantic flowers on this small plant. A very interesting, very artistic photograph. Love it. Now we go into the dendrobiums. We don't have a lot of dendrobiums this time. We have a couple of bulbophyllums. This one is one of Kathy's, and it grows outside and in tree ferm. Now, the thing about bulbophyllums is they all require lots of water, and she says that seeing these open is always interesting. Watch your flowers opening. They do put on a show. And I just took a closer look at this, and can you see the eyes and the nose and the Fu Manchu mustache here and the little goatee? I thought that was really cute. Gorgeous picture. The Elizabeth Ann Buckleberry. This is a reliable plant, easy to grow. Likes to be warm and moist and good light, and these really elegant flowers, and always with this umbel of 6 to 8 flowers, and they can be over a foot long, so very, very nicely done. And this is a Dendrobium hibiki, another very rewarding dendrobium. These flowers, as Peng says, these flowers last a very, very long time, and it's very easy to grow. And I would like to point out, for those artistic people who say you can't really use orange and pink, I think orange and pink here looks perfect. Okay, now we get to the Catacetinae. Cycnochus bartiorum, beautiful cascade of the Swan orchid, quite a full flower, nicely spotted. And this is flowering for the second time this year. You can see it produced a nice healthy spike and then produces lots of flowers. And these will flower more than once on the same pseudobulb. This is one of our plants. It's Millie's Frilly Dragon with Karen Armstrong. Very striking flowers. This is a really nice flower. It didn't go to judging yesterday because it doesn't have enough flowers, but it is beautiful, isn't it? Now this one is interesting. This is Orglades Davis Ranchis with Memoria Raul Bortera Penendo. This, I would have expected a more solid color in this. When this first started opening, we thought that it was kind of ho-hum, and we weren't that interested in it. But as it opened, the sepals and petals really, really filled out. Unfortunately, I forgot to add, we had another flower open. Again, this plant needs more flowers. These are gorgeous flowers, but it needs more. But you notice how these the sepals and petals are quite wide here. We had another plant of this same Grex open this week after this picture was sent in, and the flowers were probably a good centimeter wider from side to side, and the lip was fuller. However, the sepals and the two petals and the dorsal were very narrow, and they were all bunched up together, and so the flower really was not nearly as nice as what you see here. And this is a one that Sinya grew, and of course the Wine Delight Gem, FCC AOS. This is a Cycnodes, so it's the Cycnoches, the Swan Orchid, with the Marmotes, which is one of the ones that's really twisted, but the Marmotes is what give the color to this Grex, and the color in this is absolutely gorgeous. Again, she's said the second round of flowers. Yes, we also had 2 rounds of flowers, so when these things are grown, they really do produce lots of flowers. And the Cymbidium, Cymbidium green sour, and I thought this was really cute. But I thought that maybe we're missing a ribbon here because there is a really a nice addition to this the photograph. Okay, now we go to the miscellaneous. We have the Pleurothallus. This is one of Joyce's plants. You can see how well it's grown. Look at all the lovely leaves. I love the shape of the leaves, the heart-shaped leaves, and all the little flowers. There's lots of flowers. They may not be big, but they are beautiful. This is an interesting cross. It's Stanhope gentiana with a Acineta densa. Now these can be very large plants. Obviously this one isn't. Eugene is growing it probably in a 6-inch pot or so, but you notice that he's punched holes all around the pot, because if he hadn't, he would never have seen this inflorescence or these flowers, because see where the stem comes from the bottom. They flower, you know, through the bottom. All the stems always come down. So whenever you're growing anything with Stanhope or Acineta, you need to have a place for the stems to come out. Doesn't this make your mouth water? It's like some really, really rich chocolate. It's shiny and gorgeous. Icasti Gladys Elurgi, red spotted, beautiful, beautiful thing. He thought that maybe it's a second flowering, so he's already had flowers on it, and so these two are an extra, and he thought, well, maybe it was the change in temperature that sort of prodded it on, or maybe it was just a happy plant and said, oh, I forgot, I have 2 more buds, and put them up. And then we have a Masdevallia. We don't see too many of these. This is a cross that Ivan grew, Cholita quencana. It's a uniflora cross, so it's probably a sequential flowering. A nice thing to grow, and it's nice to see that we don't see a lot of Masdevallias these days, but it's nice to see them. And our plant of the month is not a giant. It is a tiny little plant with gorgeous flowers. And I would say probably this plant is no more than about 2.5 inches across and has these huge flowers. Now, Colette, I think you're online. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you grow it? Colette, are you still here? Colette, are you here? Can you unmute yourself?
Yes. Give me a second.
It's a little tricky sometimes, isn't it? Tell us how you grow this.
Sorry about that. Well, at first when I received it in May, I just had it in quarantine, and it was on a little shelf growing under lights, and it bloomed pretty much every month. And then throughout the summer, it started producing more spikes, more leaves. And then I decided, once it looked pretty pest-free, clear and ready to be integrated in the little vivarium, it just kept growing, and it's doing beautifully, and there's a 4th spike coming under one of those leaves. It's in just a little clear pot, and it looks like it's sphagnum moss. I don't dare repot it right now.
And if it keeps flowering, you'll never repot it, right?
Probably not.
Nicely done.
Thank you. Very flattered.
And a tiny little plant to have those 3 big flowers and more spikes coming is really something. And you know, sometimes we forget how beautiful these little things are. Thank you for sharing with us.
You're very welcome.
And thank you for all the people who contributed plants in this time. We still have quite a few people. I'm sure there's more of you out there that have beautiful things that you could share with us. But thank you for those who did. And looking forward to the flowers for next month. And thank you for this month's judge. Judging is always a challenge with these because there's so many beautiful things that are submitted each month. I'm so proud of our show table. Now, remember where we keep talking about Orchid Chuckles, and all of our plants do silly things. So why not share it with the rest of us? For instance, this one, Kathy says, #1 reason not to take orchid photos on the floor. It could be a catastrophe. And And then sometimes they just misbehave. Look at these beautiful flowers all lined up, and you know, brassias, brassatas, bretonias, they're supposed to be all lined up nicely. And what did this one do? The last one just said, no, I'm not going to do it. Just did a handstand. Growing areas. We don't have anything on growing areas, but Kathy wants to share a tip about growing her catasetums. Take it away, Kathy. Kathy? Kathy, are you still there? Whoops.
Hi, I just had to change devices. My headphones are annoying. So last year, we had Fred Clark do a presentation to us. And one of the things that he said that we could do is take our catasetum plants, put them in a jar with a bit of water in the bottom. It's important that the pot does not touch the water. So they're just in a nice humid environment. And you do this during the winter rest. So I did that last year. And then I asked Fred, well, how should I repot? Because my roots are doing really well. He said, just pot them up. Don't take off any of the old roots because they're nice and live. And just add more sphagnum, put them in a bigger pot. So I did that. And they went outside for the summer, not in the jar. The jar is only during the winter rest. So during the summertime, they got watered by rain and by me when the rain didn't come. And I brought them in whenever it was going to go below 20 degrees. I do have Catasetum fibreatum that really hates getting cold. So I just did all of them, brought them in. Now I have them back in the jars. I haven't had to water them very much. As you can see, there's a root growing down into the water. No problem. I just basically mist the top if the sphagnum moss seems to be a bit too dry. The leaves are green, they're spiking, they're really happy, and I'm just very thankful for Fred's idea to do this.
Now, Kathy, I noticed that Juliet asked if the roots are in water. The roots are only in water if they themselves grow into it, right?
Right. Yeah. So you need to have a good half-inch between the water and the pot.
And of course, if the roots grow into the water, they want to be there, and they adjust themselves so that they can be in there, so they don't drown.
Presumably.
Well done. So this is something that I know that there's a lot of catasetums in our society now because we brought them in. This is a good thing to try.
My pseudobulbs are bigger than ever before. They're massive.
Kathy, what temperature do you keep it at during the winter? Because one of our other growers said that they go into a hibernation or drop their leaves whenever the temperature drops below 65 degrees Fahrenheit. So are you keeping it above that?
Yeah, they're at room temperature. They're in the house, and they still like to have lots of light during the winter, even though they don't have leaves. So I just have them in a south-facing window during the winter.
Also, they do drop their leaves.
Yeah.
Because Phalaenopsis plants never went into hibernation and never dropped their leaves. when you kept the temperature above 65?
Mine drop their leaves.
I
I've
guess
only
it
done
goes
this 1 year.
Oh, yeah.
Inga, I know Mario said the same thing, that if you kept in the same way with the Lycastes, that if you kept them watered under certain conditions, they seem to keep growing, like they didn't stop and they didn't drop their leaves. But normally they do.
I think Fred said to cut off the leaves if you still have them in January.
Yes, I think I remember that too.
Yeah, he said force it into hibernation by keeping them very dry.
Yeah.
Now, I've done this with my Silogeny, and it's happy with that. You do not do this with any plant where it has to dry out. So this is not something to do with the Cattleya, for example.
Mhm.
So it's only for those plants that like to have moisture and not dry out.
And so you mist it every time the sphagnum gets dry?
Yeah, which is about once every 3 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
So it's been quite humid this fall so far.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Kathy. Good tip. Okay,
Thanks.
so of course, we have to plug our judges, as we do as you heard earlier. We are doing judging on the Saturday before the meeting, and we invite you to bring your plants. We didn't have much in the way of plants from our members, but we had plants from RBG and from Windsor, and so we would love to get more of your plants. And there's a lot of those plants that we saw on the show table that could have come to judging. Now, we did have 3 awards. Whoops, it went too fast. The first one, it went to Rob Vanderhayden for his Rincatlanthe Young Min Gold. It's a cross of Young Min Orange by Xingfong Little Sun, and it got an AM of 83. And the thing that the judges really liked about it was the fact that it had this really nice lip. Both the parents had it had the same sort of gorgeous color, but they were a little, and the shape was similar, but it was the lip that gave this thing away. Not only did it have a nice full lip, but it also has a nice contrasting red overlay. The next one was a plant, and Rob is from the RBG Orchid Society. Jonathan Pohanka sent some plants in from Windsor. They arrived with one of the judges. You can always contact one of the judges and drop your plants off there, and they'll bring them to judging. And this is what happened to this. Mark Whalen brought these to judging. Now, this is still a cross. It's a Laelia Cattleya that got an HCC of 75 points, but you notice that it only has the parents here, Pink Treasure by Finkiana, and this is a SVO cross, or Fred Clark's cross. So he now has to get in touch with Fred, and between them they'll decide how they're going to name this. It has to be registered, and then it'll be published in the Orchids magazine. Another one of Jonathan's plants got awarded. It was a Phalaenopsis. Now it's got an HCC of 78 points, and it's Phalaenopsis. Whoops, I spelt that wrong. That should be a Zhang Ming New. It got an HCC of 78, and you'll notice the beautiful shape on this. I think it was a little bit fragrant too, and it had I forget how many flowers. They had 2 or 3 spikes on it, very nicely grown. and it was much appreciated by the judges. So we had the 3 awards, and we'd like to see more of your plants, and bring them in and let the judges work. So the next judging is December 4th, I think, the day before the meeting anyways. And so that's it for me. Thank you for coming.